Call to order a regular meeting of Warren City Council, Tuesday, August 9th at 7 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
President Green,
Here.
Councilman Lafferty,
Here.
Councilman Watts,
Here.
Councilman Kaczynski,
Present.
Councilwoman Rogency, here, Councilman Papandrea,
Here.
Councilwoman Moore is present. You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. Next item.
Next item is for adoption of the consent agenda. So moved.
Support with discussion.
Motion by Moore, support by Lafferty. Discussion, Mr. Lafferty.
Thank you. Regarding item 4G, I'd like to move that to the regular agenda. I'm sorry, not 4G, 4H. No, I'm sorry, that's not it either. We're moving too
4G
quickly.
is the communications.
I'm sorry, 4G, I would like to remove from the consent agenda and move to table it to the next meeting.
Well, it has to go on the regular agenda. So well, that was for,
4G.
4G.
it will be 14G,
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Ms. Moore.
That's it.
Is that it? I'll call the question as amended. 4G is now 14F.
No, it's not. No, it's not. But that'll be done in the adoption. I have something else for
Gotcha.
that.
Ms. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty.
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski.
Yes.
Mr. Watts.
Yes.
Ms. Rogency.
Yes.
Mr. Papandrea.
Yes.
Green votes yes. Item passed 7-0. Next item.
Next item is 5, adoption of the agenda. So moved with discussion.
Support Lafferty.
Motion by Moore, support by Lafferty. Discussion, Ms. Moore.
Yes, I'd like to remove 13A. That was my item. Apparently, one of the assistant city attorneys and I were thinking about the same thing, so that's already being addressed. I'd like to add as item 13F, payment of invoices to Plunkett Cooney totaling $85,627.01, and add as item 14F, payment of invoices to Miller Canfield totaling $84,499.80. And what was consent item 4G will now be item 14G.
Mr. President, through the chair.
Mr. Lafferty.
What was item 13 E or F?
13F is payment of invoices to Plunkett Cooney.
Thank you.
What's 14F?
Payment to Miller Canfield.
Okay, so we have Plunkett Cooney under 13.
Wait a minute. Yeah. 13F is Plunkett Cooney, and 14F is Miller Can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional? On the amended agenda, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 7-0. Next item.
Next item is calendar pending matters 6A. Motion to approve.
Support Lafferty.
Motion by Moore, support by Lafferty. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next item is 6B, discussion in-ray resident neighborhood concerns. The first item is Councilmember Jonathan Lafferty, discussion in-ray flooding at Cosgrove and Linville, Irene, and Desmond and Panama, south of Stevens to 9 Mile Road. So moved.
Support Lafferty with discussion.
Motion by Moore, support by Lafferty. Discussion, Mr. Lafferty.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through the chair to Ms. Gapshis. While she's approaching, the recent storms brought a flurry of phone calls and concerns to my desk with flooded streets and highlighting some of the chronic issues that we have. Last meeting, you might recall that we talked about the Cosgrove project. It was the construction project, brand new, and there was some flooding there. And I reached out to Ms. Gapshus via email, and of course, in the spirit of cooperation, I always CC the mayor to let him know that I have reached out to ask a question of a department head. And it's not directing any particular action, it's just asking a question. What happens when this particular situation arises? Could you please clarify this? That is in the spirit of cooperation. Instead, I received an angry phone call, and the information that I was looking for was elusive. So I appreciate Ms. Gapshus, you being here to answer the questions that I have relative to this. First of all, Cosgrove and Linville, this is a brand-new project, and we talked about some silt screens. Could you add some color to that and why those streets are flooding like that?
Sure. Any construction project requires a Macomb County soil erosion permit, and so we go under the rules of Macomb County, and they require these silt bags in the catch basin during the entire construction process, and they have to remain in place until the seed starts to grow, the vegetation establishes. That is not the case yet on Cosgrove, and we had a major rainstorm. So it did flood, but it's temporary. It will go down, and it just goes down slower, and any seed that was washed away will be taken care of by the contractor.
Okay, so the waters did recede. It was a slow process, but it did recede. And then what would be the timetable for neighbors to expect the contractor to come back out and reseed what might have been eroded or washed away?
I spoke with the contractor. He said soon. He didn't give me an exact time, but it should be soon, next week or so.
Okay. Follow-up to that, do you communicate with the residents and ask them to water the boulevards, or is the contractor responsible for that?
Contractor's responsible for watering for, I believe it's 30 days. I have to look at the contract, but
Okay.
there's a certain time period that they're responsible.
All right, I appreciate that. The next section was Irene and Desmond. Now, this particular section, this is near the 12 Mile and Hoover area. They state that their area was rebuilt. This is approximately 7 years ago. And prior to the construction, they had no drainage problems on the street. Following the construction, they've had nothing but slow drainage. And they sent me a video, and you could see the car going through, and the water was washing halfway up the driveway. There was so much water on the street. So, and that has been a chronic problem. So if you could please,
For how long? When?
for the last 7 years.
Last 7 years. Okay.
So they have photos and video dating back for proof. So I wasn't going to post any photos for this. There's water on the street.
There may be some issue with the storm sewer. We can have it TV tested. We can check it out.
Thank you. Thank you. The final item is also a chronic issue on Panama, and I'm not sure if this is Mr. Papandreou's or Mr. Kapuzinski's district, from Stevens to 9 Mile Road. And apparently this has been reported before. Same issue, chronic flooding, and that they're asking for some relief.
Okay. We can have that checked out as well.
All right, thank you. The work that you did in the St. Anne neighborhood apparently has been very successful. So I've heard from a number of people there. I've driven through after storms. Of course, you can't get back across Mound Road after a large rain. I know that'll be addressed with Innovate Mound, but that was a significant issue. So thank you.
All right. All right. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Lafferty. Any other resident concerns?
Mr. President?
Mr. Watts?
I have quite a few items here today. To our communications, the first, I have some pictures. So the first one would be Motor City Trailer Park. I had a complaint on this unit D6. I went over there, I drove around, and indeed the unit that was complained about is terrible. A lot of garbage, a lot of junk, but when I drove through the rest of the park, I found that there was a lot of problems in the park. So I turned this in some weeks ago. Resident contacted me over the weekend and said nothing has been done. So I'd like to refer this back to the administration and make sure this gets taken care of. Second item is 21740 Ryan Road at Living Faith Church. I received a complaint from a resident that they brought a big shed in there on a platform and just dropped it in the parking lot. There's no permit pulled. Become a rodent problem and what have you. So the resident said they've called a couple times and nothing's been done. So once again, I'd like to refer this to the proper department to be taken a look at. Next item would be Orr and Eureka. I believe we have some pictures for that. I turned this item in over a year ago, and this is rather disturbing. There is an unlicensed vehicle in the street, and it's still sitting in the same spot it was 1 year ago. There is a basketball hoop in the street being held down by 2 large logs, which is an absolute traffic hazard. This picture, I think, only has, there it is, it's got the logs on it. So it's still in the same spot it was a year ago. Went over there and confirmed it, as well as garbage in the driveway. It's a mess. The neighbors say that it's getting worse in the whole neighborhood, and you know, if we keep letting one place go, it's gonna spread like cancer. So I don't know what the administration's doing, but you know, they came here a few weeks ago and went on the attack that they're doing their job and things are getting done and it takes time and due process. Well, I gotta tell you, a year for due process to get dangerous objects out of the road, traffic hazards out of the road, garbage out of the driveway, that's unacceptable. That needs to be taken care of. Fourth one is 8268 Dodge. It's a dilapidated garage. It's actually leaning over. The roof is caved in it on the side. And this was turned in a year ago. And again, nothing's been done. I just can't imagine, this garage is leaning on the neighbor's fence, and I can't imagine that the city just lets this stuff go. They just walk by it. Next one is, this is really troublesome. They came here, I think 4 weeks ago, 2 council meetings ago, and said they had this stuff taken care of. I got a phone call from the mayor's office with Bob Scott on the phone, and they gave me a story about 11169 Ocala, which turned out to be all false. I'm receiving texts, there's loud parties going on over there, the grass is uncut, the property's uncut, and they told me this was all taken care of. I went over there like 3 days later, and lo and behold, guess what? It's all the same. The neighbor's still sending texts. He says he's been calling the police about the loud parties, horn blowing in the middle of nights. And oddly enough, once again, the complaint, where the complaints are coming from, it's a rental home. So that's a problem. The administration needs to get that taken care of. Next item is 2430 Fred Street. I brought this one to the attention of the administration. It's an open to trespass vacant dwelling, and they said they were going to put it up for abatement, and this is what I got. Plastic fence around the place, and it's still open to trespass. Kids could get in there, vagrants, whatever, and we could have a mess. Again, the city is letting the residents down by not taking care of these problems. Next item is Stevens and Hoover. I've had numerous complaints over the last 6 or 8 months. I was down in the area a couple times in the past week, and the stench from the marijuana grow operations at Stevens and Hoover are unbelievable, unbelievable. I can't imagine what those residents feel like. If we're gonna have marijuana grow operations, they damn well better take care of their filter systems, and the city better get on the ball and take care of these problems. They better start inspecting these things and getting them done. I'm sick and tired of getting complaints, and this administration is doing nothing. So they need to take care of whatever grow operation it is. I think I know where it's coming from, but there's a couple down there, so they need to take care of that. The next one is 2128 Michael Street. I was told over a year ago by Gus Ganem that he was sending this for abatement. I was over there during the summer last summer with Jim Cummings and I believe Kurt Raines and the homeowner, and he said he was going to get this done, he's going to get it taken care of. And Mr. Cummings says, I'd rather have a home taken care of, rebuilt, reconstructed, renovated, back on the tax rolls. Great, no problem. Here we are a year later. I'm still getting complaints from the neighborhood. I looked up the building permit on it, and it was canceled because he didn't follow through on anything. Nothing's been done, and again, we have a vacant dwelling full of garbage just sitting there, not being taken care of. So I would like the administration to, again, get going on this. The next item is 3446 Los Angeles. A massive tree, I think we have pictures on this, a massive tree fell in the last few days with a storm. This home belongs to a rental company. They were supposed to have somebody out there. The tree's down into the neighbors' yards, and nobody's come to do anything about it. They said they called the city, and I don't know if there's enough time for the city to do anything, but I'd like the city to follow up on this. Now, what's troublesome with this is when I looked up who the homeowner was, I've had numerous complaints on homes that this company owns. And under this one particular company name, they own 111 rental homes in this city. Under 3 other names, they own another couple of hundred homes. So I've had many complaints listed to all of those different companies. Folks, we have a rental home problem here with these landlords that we're gonna have to deal with. So if the city could send somebody over to 3446 Los Angeles and get somebody moving on that. Lastly is Wexford Street and Norwood Street, south of 14 Mile. I asked for a sweep to be done in there. A couple of residents called me from over there, and they said the inspectors from building maintenance have come out there, and they park, and they never get out of their car. And they leave. This has happened numerous times. I went over there, and I don't have any problem finding the problems that the gentleman complained about. They get a warning about cutting the grass. They cut the front grass, they leave the back go. They got trees they're growing up. I mean, it's a mess. Some of those yards are a real mess. So I think we need to do some sweeps there. Lastly is area of 4481, 4507, 4521 Bonning Street. Again, numerous complaints have been made on these properties, and I believe there's a tree down on a fence over there too, and fell into somebody's backyard, and they've had numerous complaints, and nothing's been done about that either. So again, this is another rental home situation where they own about 4 rental homes in a row, and the rental company has been non-responsive. So if the city would take note on all these, I'll be happy to put them in an email tomorrow and send them over. But for the public record, I want everybody to know what's going on and what's not being taken care of. So with that.
Mr. Watts, what was the address of the abandoned car and the basketball net?
It's on Orr Street, just east of Eureka.
Thank you. Any additional? We have Mr. Lafferty and Mr. Watts' item to send over the administration. Motion by Moore, support by Lafferty. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next item is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of July 26, 2022. So moved.
Support Lafferty.
Motion by Moore, support by Lafferty. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next item is 8A, motion to approve the bills of the General Revenue Fund.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Moore, support by Rogan C. Discussion. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Rogancy?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Papandrea?
Yes.
Mr. Watts?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Green votes yes. Item passed 7-0.
Next item is 8A1, Table Check 7/12/2022. Motion to remove check number 640992, check number 641520, and 642018 from the table right now.
Support.
Support with discussion.
Motion by Moore, support by Rogancy to remove from the table. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Rogancy?
Yes.
Mr. Papandrea?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Watts?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Green votes yes. Those three checks are removed from the table.
Motion to approve. Check number 640992, check number 641520, 642018.
Discussion, Mr. President.
I need a support first.
Support Rogancy.
Motion by Moore, support by Rogancy. Discussion, Mr. Lafferty.
Thank you. The approval, while I don't have an issue, the issue that addresses the Ascentus agreement is later in the agenda. So I was going to ask if we could postpone voting on this until after we address the issue with the contract.
Sure.
If-
I think we can table it to, what is the item?
That item is...
I'm sorry, what?
12A.
So let's make this 12A1.
So motion by
Table
Moore, support by Lafferty to move check number 642018 to item 12A1.
Well, we can table it to that item.
However you want to do it.
Yeah,
That's
table to that item.
Table it,
and then
on
we
the
can
agenda,
untable it.
whatever.
Yeah.
Support to table it.
So moved. So support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 642018 is 12A1. 18, and it's tabled. Okay, on the other two checks.
Next, check number 642029 to David Grimm. Make a motion to remove from the table.
Support.
Motion by Moore, support by Lafferty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to approve.
Support with discussion.
Motion by Lafferty, support by Moore. Discussion, Ms. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President. I suppose we have to go back a ways, and I'll kind of discuss all these checks we're going to be paying for, or we're going to hopefully approve tonight. Months ago, we had a court settlement to pay all legal bills, and at that time, we had all the bills that were present before us, and at the last minute, when we had this agreement, the administration threw in the Miller Canfield bills that we didn't know anything about. So that was included in that settlement. All of those bills were paid to various law firms, and I'm not sure what the date was. Subsequent to that, we approved the invoice of Plunkett Cooney and approved the check. The check was issued, and the controller's office stopped payment on that check, which they shouldn't have done. They don't have the authority to do that. So we have that group of checks. That check is out there to pay those invoices. So we have already approved that, so we'll expect a check to go out tomorrow to pay those that we've already approved. Now, on the David Grimm bills, I would make that is part of this current settlement. And the David Grimm bills are, what's the total? What's the total, Mary? About 7,000, close to 7,000? 7,500. Yeah. And also, there are, for the lawsuit that the mayor sued us over the budget, I believe, right?
And the other item.
And sued us because he doesn't want us to contact department heads. He wants Plunkett Cooney removed, and he wants to void the diversity, equity, inclusion ordinance and any other ordinance that council passed. He sued us on those items, and the bill to his attorney is $84,499.80 at this point. We also have another item we'll discuss later, but it's to Plunkett Cooney, and their total bill is $85,000 something, and that's for everything they do for us. And the mayor's attorneys are paid $475 an hour, and we're paying $250, $275. So, and we just had a meeting with the court, and there is a the judge suggested that going forward, we have a fee schedule, so we're not paying one attorney, one fee, and paying these just exorbitant fees to these other law firms that lose. I mean, they've lost everything. So I think maybe the mayor should stop suing us. But I will make a motion to approve, maybe I already did, the David Grimm check.
Yeah, we have that. All right, so we have a motion by Moore, support by Rogan C. for check number 640992 and 641520. I'll call those two. Ms.
Those are tabled to
No,
12.
they're not.
No, not the Grimm ones,
No.
just the Grimm.
642018 was
No,
moved.
yeah.
That's a Ascentus.
That's the one you said
All the
moved.
Ascentus were moved, but check number 642029 is the current one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Motion by Lafferty, support by Moore. Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Rogan C.
Yes.
Mr. Papandrea?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Mr. Watts?
No.
Green votes yes, item passed 6-1. Next item.
Next item is 8B, approval of the bills of the water and sewer system, so moved.
Support
Support.
Lafferty.
Motion by Moore, support by Lafferty. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Ms. Rogan C.
Yes.
Mr. Watts?
Yes.
Mr. Papandrea?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Green votes yes, item passed 7-0. Next item.
Next item is audience.
Members of the audience who would like to address council this evening may do so under this portion. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak. When there's 1 minute left, we'll let you know, and when there's 3 minutes, I'll ask you to wrap up. First speaker is Glenn Laux.
I am Glenn Laux, and I guess it wasn't Mrs. Gapshe's honor to meet me tonight, unless she's in the back of the room somewhere. I come here tonight as the advocate for Lions Circle West, the actual heartbeat of this city. We're in the historic district. We've tried for 7 years to get our streets paved with cement, and we finally won that battle, and it's being done. I came across a situation in the last couple of days as the contractors were wrapping up and thinking about what's going to happen with $5,000 I'm sorry. $5,038 square feet of cement where the little island used to sit in the cul-de-sac. What this represents is a street line 54 feet from the edge of the pavement to the curb. And there are 7 houses along the edge of that curve. 2 days ago, I sent Ms. Gapshe's with a copy to Mr. Lafferty, my position on this particular item. And I want to make the council very clear on one thing. I'm a professional certified purchasing agent, and my standards of excellence are based on being very discreet about how I deal my business. And Mr. Lafferty will tell you this, and the mayor will tell you this, and Mrs. Gapshe's will tell you this. I only speak to who I need to speak to when I need to speak with them. This area represents the potential for street disasters
1 minute.
of unknown manner. People driving, people parking, people not parking. I'm sorry, did we miss something? Yeah, sorry. And I'm here tonight to seek further advocacy from the council. I need your people to say, okay, we have public service people who can help you figure this out, how to get these things taken care of, because what I'm asking for is simple. It's a double yellow line down the center of the road, just like they use on highways to say don't cross. A cross mark on X on the far right-hand side with a wide band of it so that people know that that's area not to drive in, and still protect this 54 feet of people's 5,000 square feet of land. If we can't do that, and that's what I got the answer back from Mrs. Gapshe's, and the quote was, the city does not paint anything except for crosswalks, which I can believe that's a standard, but that standard doesn't apply when you have helped us create a disaster area. So if the council can find people that can advise me on the particulars of this kind of nature, I would appreciate it. And I know you know how to get a hold of me. I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Laux. Delaware, answer. You don't want to speak? Janet Mawa.
Hello, I'm here on behalf of Delaware Hussein. I believe that position that he's going for is really good because I've always seen him planning for the community. One example I would give is the Helmish Park. I've seen him put a lot of thoughts and process through all of it. He's my brother, so I always see him doing whatever he can for the community that can help for the community. So I would say he can be a very good person for this position. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Masker Kausar.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Masker Kausar. Today, I'm older brother of Delaware Answer. So I'm here just to know about the Delaware Answer as a family member. He's my immediate younger brother, so I know him very well about these things. He got his graduation from the back home, Bangladesh. So fortunately, he came here with family, and so far I saw him over here also. He's doing so many social work, and so you know some of the councilmen, I think, know about his social works over here. He formed a youth community clubs to for the sports things that are actually essential for the youngsters. And over there in my back home, he has a lot of community work over here. Still he's over here, but he's doing a lot of for the poor peoples. At the pandemic time, he did a lot of projects in the back home for the peoples who suffered from the pandemic, and he had a project named Oxygen that provided 1,000 people at the back home and saved the lives. You can check in the social media all his activities and work, social works. So I'm very glad, like today's the council meeting, some is going to be requests for him. I think it's a great opportunity because he has a lot of potentiality. He has a lot of community work experience. I think the Warren City can utilize his potentiality. I believe he can give something the city peoples and the community over here. And thank you for participating for me. Have a good night.
Thank you. Sawar Hussain.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sarwar Hussain. I'm his brother. Just like to say that my brother, he's been working with the community for over 10 years, and he's doing a lot for the community, especially with youth. And my brother said that he is pretty much affiliated with poor people back home as well. And my only request that if you guys can include him to the be a member of the community here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Laura Arts.
Of course, the phone stops working when you need to talk. Good evening, everybody. Today I want to talk about something you guys probably have never heard about, but might as well get up here and say something. As you may or may not know, the City of Warren pays the county Macomb County several $1,000s a year. I've had probably 5 calls with the mayor, several calls with Gus Ganem, several calls with the county. 3 years ago, the mayor told me that we give the county $70,000 a year to pay the county to hire people to shovel snow and cut grass for our senior citizens and disabled. So I asked, well, how do I get on it? What do I do? I spent another dozen phone calls trying to figure out how to do it. I called my county commissioner. I don't think I ever talked to city council. And then I talked to Gus Ganem. He said, well, they want another $30,000, we're sending him out. I said, well, how do I apply? Well, the mayor says, well, we're giving them the money. They set up the application process. I called the county, and the county said, no, they're giving us the money, but the city has to accept the applications, vet the people, and decide who's going to get the services. So I called back the county, and the county says, no, we don't do it. The city has to do it. I called Gus Ganem, and I guess you guys can understand that. This is not good. This is not good. Under 12G today, you have a request by the city to give the county, again, $51,000 to pay for lawn service, snow removal service for senior citizens, disabled people of low income. Just think about what that would be nice. Wouldn't that be nice for Warren to spend $100,000 a year to cut senior citizens' grass and shovel their snow? Let's talk about blight removal. So I've gone back, I've talked to Michelle Nard, I've talked to my song, I've talked to everybody, and nobody can figure out where the application process is, who applies. It's not on the city council website. I could ask any of you, how do I apply for this service? Last year I had cancer. I didn't get out of bed for 8 months.
1 minute.
Okay, couldn't do it. So I am asking you today, please, please, table this until the city comes up with an application process. It's 12G. Don't give them $51,000. I would like to know, by the way, who got the money last year and did the money roll over? If we've been giving them $100,000 a year for several years, where is that funds and who's getting these services? Do not let make the city come up with an application process that's agreed to between the city and the county. Make them put that on the website, so if any of your people call you up and say, hey, how do I get this service? You can point to the application process and explain. It is income controlled, so you need, what's the dollar amount? It's not posted anywhere. So I beg you, please, table 12G, tell the city they have to come up with a method of doing this. And I would beg you also to go back and check how much money, do we have money in the checkbook from last year? Because I tried to get the money and I couldn't. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lori Harris.
Hi, just want to let the citizens know who are listening to this or will be listening later. I'm going to be initiating a citizen-led group to reclaim our city, and I need website help. So find me on Facebook at Lori Phillips Harris and message me to get in touch. Number 2, the mayor. I find it completely inappropriate for you to send city employees to attack citizens at this podium. I do not believe that they did this on their own. You should also be ashamed of yourself for criticizing residents to other residents. I have been the victim of this, and I'm not going to tolerate it. Mr. Demas, why are you coming and making announcements of positions that not follow the charter? Why don't you do your business in human resources at the city rather than come here to make your little announcements and just throw in the face of everyone that you don't have to follow the rules? Vera Spiegel last summer had a terrific idea about having a portable book bench to be able to sit out in the community and read to the children in her neighborhood. Some people in the city kind of took over that idea and nothing happened. So I'm encouraging Vera and volunteers to build a little library for her neighborhood and a bench for her yard. Number 12I, the adult use marijuana permit. Is this a grow or a retail? Let's see. And I want to remind people that COVID is still real and look out for each other. We had 137 deaths in the last week again. The state of Michigan is averaging 500 to 600 deaths a month from COVID. And that should not be happening.
1 minute.
So let's take care of each other. Is it 1 minute? Okay, let's see. Can I think of anything else I want to say? Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Joel Vanderlinden.
Good evening, Council. Joel Vanderlinden, longtime Warren resident. I just wanted to come up and wish little Jimmy Fouts a happy birthday. Little Jimmy's turned 90, and I thought we should all wish him a happy birthday and celebrate his old age. Mrs. Art's question about who has the forms to mow the lawn, to shovel the sidewalks. That's in the mayor's office. There is a form in there. I don't know why the girls here don't know where it's at, unless someone misplaced it. It has always been there. And no, we don't get our share of that money that we're spending. It's for the senior citizens of Warren taken care of. So suspending or tabling that item would not be a bad idea, unless the county can guarantee that we get our money's worth of cut grass and sidewalk shoveled and such. And with that, I'm done. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. Mai Zhang.
Good evening. Boy, did I pick the right date to come see you guys. Thank you so much for this time. I'm County Commissioner Mai Zhang. Currently represent many of you, East Warren and Centerline. In addition to being here tonight to support Commissioner Nar's proclamation recognizing July 24th to the 30th as American with Disability Act Awareness Week, I also want to thank you for your consideration of item 12G for a resolution to provide $51,000 in funding to support efforts in helping our seniors and those with disabilities regarding their grass and snow services. As your county commissioner, I would support efforts to ensure that this funding goes towards servicing our residents. I'm also here today to share that on July 14th, at a full board meeting, the Board of Commissioners adopted a resolution 2022-8565, a resolution approving language for Macomb County Public Transportation millage to appear on the November 8th ballot regarding SMART, which provides access to more than 67,000 businesses, 850,000 jobs with an average weekday ridership of 18,000 people. So this previous millage was a rate of 1 mil that was approved by the voters in 2018, and it expired in the 2021 tax year. So this new resolution would support having this millage to support funding public transportation, and the proposition is to establish a 0.95 mil, which is a little bit less to support public transportation. So I'm here today to voice my support for this ballot initiative in November, and I hope that all of you will join me in supporting it, because public transportation is very important for many of our seniors, our veterans, those that are disabled, and the ones that can't afford purchasing a vehicle. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mary Matazinski.
Good evening, Council. I'm going to read this into the record tonight. Please keep in mind, for nearly 50 years, the City of Warren Planning Department has always denied any and all requests to barricade Gerald Street. December 6, 1972, to Honorable City Council from City of Warren Planning via Honorable Ted Bates, Mayor, regarding vacation of Gerald Avenue west of Rhone. At its public hearing of November 6, 1972, the City of Warren Planning Commission adopted a resolution recommending to your honorable body that the above described vacation be denied, as the people in the area would rather have the street blocked off. However, if your honorable body should decide to vacate Gerald Avenue, it is requested that any action be deferred for 6 months in order to establish the traffic problem mentioned by the school board in the attached letter. June 19, 1973. To Mr. Robert Towers, Superintendent, Warren Woods School District, from City of Warren, Assistant to Director, Department of Public Service, Frederick Gamble. Be advised that we have arranged to meet with you on the school grounds at 9:30 a.m. on Friday, January 22, 1973, to discuss means of alleviating the traffic problems caused by the closing of Gerald Avenue between Roan and Imperial. Carbon copy Director, City Engineer, Police Inspector, Planning Director, County Highway Traffic Engineer. During the summer 1998, Councilman Jim Fouts visited me at my condo in Aspenwood Condos. He walked to the barricade with me on Gerald Street. Councilman Fouts was surprised that there was a city street with a barricade across it and stated in my driveway, "I'll handle it." That was 22 years ago. Still hasn't handled it. From 2016 to 2022, Ethan Vincent, Mary Michael, Jennifer Pierce, Jennifer Decker, and now Cecil St. Pierre have been called upon to do research, investigate, and write reports regarding the barricade on Gerald Street. Jeff Schroeder has also had a little input. That's 6 attorneys. Jennifer Pierce's report was written August 16, 2021, and May 26, 2022, both signed by Ethan Vincent, City Attorney. Neither one was provided to Mr. Ron Worth, Planning Director, except by me at the Planning Commission meeting on July 25th. May I please ask for...
Motion to extend the time of the speaker.
Support.
1 minute, we're not at 3 minutes yet.
Okay.
Okay. A letter dated to me June 7, 2022 from Ethan Vincent responding to my correspondence of June 5 requesting a resolution to vacate 100 feet of Gerald Street. Carbon copy James R. Fouts, Mayor, and Jennifer Pierce, Assistant Attorney. No copy provided to Mr. Ron Worth, Planning Director, except by me on July 25. Assistant City Attorney Cecil St. Pierre wrote an opinion on July 26 to Ms. Mindy Moore, City Council Secretary. It took me a few days to get a copy, but thank you so much, Jennifer Decker, for providing it. It not only contains so many errors, it has the sanctuary at Abbey listed as one of the parties. The sanctuary at Abbey and Nursing Home closed in 2016. It's been the Advantage Living Center, and currently it's the Orchards, Michigan, located on 12 Mile and Imperial. This legal opinion Cecil St. Pierre wrote July 26 is written as if he were speaking as a spokesman for Mayor Fouts rather than an assistant attorney working in the city's legal department. This opinion is completely the opposite of President and Councilman St. Pierre, which is why I'm so frustrated. Mr. St. Pierre, are you purposely trying to create public outrage against opening the barricade and turning the tables on the condo association now? In January 2017, then Councilman Keith Sadowski and Councilwoman Kelly Collegio both spoke at a city council meeting regarding this issue. Mr. Sadowski came to my condo to see firsthand the barricade situation. I personally gave Mr. St. Pierre photos of an incident where a Warren EMT vehicle and a big engine from the Warren Fire Department blocked Imperial for a very long time, trying to get an ill person out of Huntington Club Apartments into the ambulance. In fact, I recall Mr. St. Pierre, coming to Imperial Drive at approximately 6 a.m. during a snow emergency that year and counting 27 illegally parked on both sides of Imperial. So the snowplow had no choice but to plow the cars in, and we were left with only one lane to use, north and southbound, as an ingress and egress. I know people are tired of hearing from me about this barricaded street. I'm tired too. Last night again, at the Planning Commission meeting, Mr. Ron Worth explained that he's not receiving any of the information from the administration. Hence, I'm printing and making copies to hand deliver to him at Planning Commission meetings. It shouldn't work like that. He's a director of a large department in the city of Warren. If anyone should be getting copies of everything, it should be Mr. Worth. I have no idea what is going on. I think it's very sad and unprofessional to exclude the planning department on an issue this big. I have a letter dated from Mr. Worth dated December 14, 2016, to James Havermat, City Engineer, and Gier Green, Police Commissioner. This was almost 6 years ago. From Mr. Worth to Mr. Van Havermat and Mr. Green. At its public hearing of December 12, 2016, the City of Warren Planning Commission passed a motion that the Engineering and Police Department be advised of Mary Metazinski's concern. During the citizen participation portion of the Planning Commission meeting, Mary Metazinski raised concerns that there are ingress and egress issues on the south side of 12 Mile Road along Imperial, Gerald, and Roan Drives. Should you have any questions, contact our offices. Carbon copy to me, Mayor James Fouts, Assistant City Attorney Richard Sabaugh, Public Service Director Everett Murphy, Zoning Department, Patrick Kozlowski, Fire Department, Ronald Worth, Planning Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manazinski. Michael Howard.
One time, I thought it would be a cool idea to load my wife and my 2 kids at the time in a car and say, let's go on a trip, but we had no destination in mind. I was like, oh, I'll flip a coin, and if I flip heads, I'll go right. If I flip tails, we'll go left. That lasted all of about 8 minutes before my kids started screaming about chicken nuggets. I think, as silly as an example that is, I think it slightly represents our city. Warren is the only large city without a strategic plan and vision on where we're going. We have a lot of great department heads that are working. We have a great city council that's working really hard, but we don't have an overall unified vision on where we're going as a city. I read the whole entire master plan, and that's not quite the same thing what I'm talking about, so if that does get brought up, I read the whole 300 pages, however long it was. But the reason why a vision is important, it provides unity. It gives us a compass on where we're headed. It gives people barriers like you're bowling so that we can all hit the right pins. It prevents mistakes. It prevents wasting resources that we know that are being wasted throughout our city. There's so many things that we can do. Sterling Heights, I listened to their strategic plan meetings, and they have 2 this year that both were like 8 hours long. I was a little bored that night, I guess. But they talked about a lot of cool things: a walkable city, an innovative ecosystem, focus on like green spaces and how they can be more creative on the land use. One of the really cool things that it was awesome to see too, I believe one kid was 16 and the other girl was about 18, created a youth advisory board on how they can get the youth in the city engaged and active on not only just city government, but what's going to happen in the potential that they are going to be potential city leaders. And we have some really amazing high school students that are coming out of our local high school. I'm a little biased towards Fitzgerald because my brother just graduated from there. But there's some amazing students coming out of these high schools. And how awesome would it be if we had a very structured way on how to facilitate their growth and their education and then their shaping, allow them to shape the city that they live in.
1 minute.
What was other cool thing, they have a center called Velocity where it's focused on small businesses and growth. In the Metro Detroit area, in the past, I think 5 years, there was $5 billion companies that were birthed in our metro area. It's like, how awesome would that money be if it was brought back in our local cities, our local communities? A lot of those people grew up and moved out of the metro area. And even one of the great things I thought they did, and this is the last thing, is that their commissions had to come before the city council and the city manager and everything and present like, hey, this is what we've been doing. I've been looking into several of the commissions. Most of them don't meet like they're supposed to. Most of them say that their roster is full and there's not. I even spoke to several commission members and they say, well, our commission has 9 people on it, but only 2 people show up on a regular basis. And knowing that these people are supposed to be helping grow the city, helping lead the city, and knowing that that's just not the case, every single commission needs to get evaluated, and people need to either A, show up, or B, get kicked off the commission. Because there's citizens in our community that want to step up, we want to get involved, but we're told we can't. I applied for a commission 2 months ago. It was the diversity, equity, and inclusion. We know where that's not gonna happen right now during this current administration.
3 minutes.
But it would be nice to be able to see how other citizens can get involved that are literally begging for opportunities to get involved in our city, but aren't allowed to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item.
Next item is announcements, Mr. President.
Ms. Moore.
10A is resolution in celebration of Police Commissioner William Dwyer and 60 years in law enforcement.
Wow. Do we have a resolution form? Mr. Lafley? Who has it?
I have it?
Do you have it?
Want me to read it?
Oh, I can read it.
You want me to read it?
I got it.
Gary?
Oh, Gary's
Got
got
it,
it.
Gary?
I got it, yeah.
Gary's got it.
Proclamation. This proclamation is congratulate Police Commissioner William Dwyer on 60 years in law enforcement. Whereas William Dwyer has served as Police Commissioner for the City of Warren for over 8 years, and whereas William Dwyer began his law enforcement career in the City of Detroit, where he served 23 years and achieved the rank of Commander's Chief of Staff. And whereas William Dwyer went on to serve the City of Farmington Hills for another 23 years as Department's Chief of Police before coming to the City of Warren. And whereas William Dwyer has served Southeast Michigan in a multitude of ways, including Oakland County Commissioner and having served on 4 two-year terms. And whereas William Dwyer has participated in the International Chiefs of Police, Michigan Southeastern Michigan and Oakland County Chiefs Associations, having served time as president of some of the organizations. And whereas William Dwyer has been a part of a multitude of advisory boards, special crime task force, commissions, and served on the governor's cabinet on crime in 1989. And whereas William Dwyer has been the recipient of many awards over the years, including the Presidential Medal from the Michigan Association's Chief of Police, Collegian Award, and Wayne State University. And in 2010, Crime Stoppers of Michigan named him the Police Executive of the Year. And whereas William Dwyer continues to collaborate in finding ways to fight crime, and is founding members of the newly created Macomb County Federal Task Force to fight against illegal narcotics, otherwise known as Phantom. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Warren City Council would like to congratulate Police Commissioner William Dwyer on this milestone achievement of 60 years in law enforcement, and thank him for all the contributions to the City of Warren and the surrounding community. Resolution declared adopted this 9th day of August 2022, signed by all of council. I might add, Saturday the 13th is his 60th year in law enforcement. I think that's a really incredible career, and to still be out there doing it as well as he's always done it. So congratulations, Commissioner Dwyer. We appreciate your service.
Is there a motion and support to approve the resolution?
So moved. Lafferty.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I believe there's a Mr. Baker. Come on down. Ms. Nard, Commissioner Nard. There he goes.
Excuse me, Mr. Green.
Yes.
Can Jonathan Lafferty join us in the presentation of this proclamation?
No.
No. I had to get my glasses too.
Absolutely.
Okay, the Board of Commissioners, we all agreed, my song and the board chair, we all agreed to support Mr. Baker in this. And I was pleased to find that Councilman Lafferty had a big part in that. I also want to thank you, Pat, and Mindy, and Gary, Mr. Watts, I'm sorry, for your help with him in doing this. This is a great thing. And I just want to read the proclamation. Also, I wanted to tell you too, Don Brown would have been here, but he had another engagement. He was going to try to drive all the way down here and then have to go all the way back up, and I didn't want him to do that much driving.
Appreciate the both of you being here.
So, but he wanted to be here. The proclamation reads, a proclamation recognizing July 24th through the 30th, 2022 as Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Week. Commissioner Michelle Nard, on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, offering the following proclamation. Whereas the American with Disabilities Act was signed into law on July 26, 1990 by President George H.W. Bush, and whereas July 26, 2022 is the 32nd anniversary of the Americans with Disability Act, and whereas the landmark civil rights law prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life, including jobs, schools, transportation, and all public and private places that are open to general public. And whereas it is important to ensure that people with disabilities are given equal access to employment, public services, public accommodations, and telecommunications throughout Macomb County. And whereas compliance of the ADA will only be reached through reaffirmation and recommitting ourselves to continue our efforts to fully implement the ADA. And whereas in the addition to the Board of Commissioners, Executive Mark Hackle, Prosecutor Pete Lucido, Sheriff Anthony Wickersham, Clerk and Register of Deeds Anthony Forlini, Treasurer Lawrence Roca, and Public Works Commissioner Candace Miller recognize the principles of equality and inclusion which drive the ADA as being crucial for Macomb County to be a welcoming and inclusive place for all people. Therefore be it proclaimed, speaking for and on behalf of all county residents as follows, that by these present, the Macomb County Board of Commissioners hereby proclaim July 24th through the 30th, 2022 as Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Week. Be it furthermore proclaimed that a suitable copy of this proclamation will be transmitted to the Macomb County delegation. Thank you, Tony. I really appreciate you bringing awareness to this, and I thank you, Jonathan, for all that you do. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Commissioner Nard. Thank you, Commissioner Zong. And thank you, Mr. Baker, for all the advocacy you do and getting us to move things forward. You're a great advocate for the community.
Mr. President.
Ms. Moore.
Thank you. I think everyone, well, most people are probably aware that the mayor embarked on a petition drive to extend his term limits to 20 years and to reduce the term of council. We were aware this was going on. We had reports of people going into City Hall and asking for Gus Ganem, and because they were there to get petitions. But none of us here on council said anything because we knew that, you know, there is, the voters are tired of this constant term limit issue coming up. The term is going to end. And I would ask the mayor, we have 15 months. Let's work together, stop suing us, follow the charter. Let's, you know, make the last 15 months the best that's been. We haven't seen much progress, but voters are tired, and, you know, somebody should be in office only so long. People even got tired of Mark Steenberg, who was probably the most successful mayor in building this town that we've ever seen. But it's time for new blood to come on, but let's work together, all of us. Let's stop bickering, follow the rules, follow the charter, and make this last 15 months go smoothly. I think everybody wants that, everybody on council. I'm exhausted. And, you know, the mayor is, you know, 80 years old, was his birthday yesterday or today. You know, he's got to be tired. It's tiring to be fighting with people all the time, and, you know, this just payback for everything all the time, and retribution, and it's tiring. But, you know, enjoy your life. Let's just move on and get along and stop this fighting. I don't want any more of it. I've really, really had it, and I think everybody up here has too. And if the mayor would set the tone, I think all of the department heads would also be a little happier. You know, everybody contacts us. They don't like this, but they're put in a position. And, you know, we have department heads coming up here and making comments to council that we know are not their own idea many of the times. But I would just ask, can't we just move forward? This was the last hurrah. Your term is going to end, Mr. Mayor. You're 80 years old. Enjoy your life. Get some joy out of this job. Enjoy the last 15 minutes. We can get a lot accomplished. And that's what I would ask for. And, you know, I know that you got yelled at, Gary, for wishing the mayor a happy birthday. But I think I would like to wish him happy birthday too, and wish him good health, and would like to move on forward, and all of us just try to get along. That's my birthday wish for the mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Any additional announcements?
Mr. President.
Ms. Padzinski, please stop. Thank you. Mr. Kabzinski.
Thank you. I have two, Mr. President.
You have the floor.
Mr. President, as it was forementioned earlier in the council meeting, there was significant flooding during the recent storms. I want to relay to the council the professionalism of the CERT team that was on Mound Road, just north of 13 Mile Road, where the most significant flooding was done in the city. The southbound lanes were all flooded, and then partially the westbound lanes of going northbound on Mound were also flooded. CERT stayed out there. I was able to reach the mayor and also get a hold of Ms. Gapshus. Luckily, her husband works for the county in the water and sewage area, so they were able to do something about that. So that's convenient. Yeah, the CERT team was out there till all hours, and I think they should be given accolades for the work that they did. This is an all-volunteer force, and they do what they do to relieve the police so they can handle the more serious calls in the city. Just one note of criticism, though. It seems to be that when the CERT is out there, not necessarily everybody wants to listen to what CERT is saying as follow their traffic directions. And it seemed to be that people still wanted to go through flooded areas, even though CERT did their best to block off those flooded areas and to direct citizens that were driving through the area through safety and ignore the CERT people. So they're not out there for their health, they're out there for your safety. So if we could listen and follow the directions of CERT, you can get along your way there, and you can avoid the floodwaters. The second announcement was having to do with the recent election, and then having to do with the numbers at the polls. So I did a little research on this here, and in the entire county, 25% of the electorate in Macomb County showed up for the primary. Warren was second from dead last in showing up at the polls, with only 20.7% of the electorate showing up at the ballot. The highest amount was in Grosse Pointe Showers, with 55.7% of the electorate showing up at the polls. To give an example of that, what that would be like, is if you only had 2 council members up here representing for the entire city. So let's say you would have the 2 at-large members, President Green and Ms. Rogancy. That's who would be representing you in the city. Or if you had just 1 council district, and I'll pick on Ms. Moore on this, let's say you just had District 3. That would be your entire voting block for the city of Warren. That's what showed up here in the city of Warren for Election Day on primary day. So it was mentioned either last week or the week prior by one of the residents about having change. You want change in your city, your county, your state, and your national government? You have to show up. You have to vote. Everything that our country is going through right now, everything that your county, your city, and your state is going through right now, you have to show up at the polls. You have to vote. That's the only way change is affected. As I said before, this was your opportunity to show up at the poll and be a council member. You get to vote. You get to vote for those who are going to represent for your interests. If you did want change to show up, 20.7 of your friends and neighbors, that's what showed up at the polls. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kabazinski. Good points. Any other announcements?
Mr. President.
Mr. Lafferty.
Thank you. I would like to offer congratulations to the Warren Parks and Recreation Department and the Warren Civic Theater on an outstanding production this past weekend. Sold-out performances of the SpongeBob musical. I brought my youngest daughter, Autumn, with me. We thoroughly enjoyed the show, and I've been to the other musicals. This musical, the talent that was on display this weekend, if you missed it, you really missed quite the show. The singing and the dancing was outstanding. These kids just wowed the audience, and I don't know how many times SpongeBob was upstaged by one of the other actors or actresses, but it was just thoroughly enjoyable, so congratulations to that cast. The Warren Civic Theater is going to be performing Clue, so that is an adaptation of the Paramount Pictures from 1985, I believe, and the board game. That will be in October, and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in December. So warrencivic.org. The theater is always looking for young people, young and old, to take part in those productions. Whether you're on stage or backstage, you are welcome to participate. It was a busy weekend. I also attended the St. Josaphat Ukrainian picnic at 11 and Ryan this weekend. They had a smaller scale festival than the days of yesteryear, but I'll tell you, the food and the cultural dancing and all of the revelry there was very enjoyable. The community had a terrific time, and I do have a couple of leftovers, and if the kids haven't gotten to them yet, I'll be enjoying those tomorrow. And with all respect to the mayor, I do want to wish him a very happy and healthy 80th birthday. We have our differences, and I will respectfully give him the accolades he deserves. Everyone deserves happiness and health, and he is absolutely entitled to that, so I wish him all the best in his 80th year. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lafferty. Any other announcements? A couple of the speakers at audience, Ms. Arts, the county services, I believe we use CDBG money. We program money to go up there, and it comes back, but as I believe Mr. Vanderlinden said, those applications have been in the mayor's office for years. So we'll reach out and find out specifically tomorrow, and then reach out to you.
Mr. President, I got a text message from the administration giving a number for them.
Please, go ahead.
It's 586-574-4519.
Okay. So we'll do a little digging on that for you and try and figure out why there was the runaround back and forth. But I know there is an application process, and depending on some of the jurisdictions and how the money is administered, it'll be that jurisdiction, whether it be Warren or Sterling Heights, that takes the application, does the qualification, and then sends it up. But the money does go very fast, and it's not enough. So maybe we look at something a little broader. And then Mr. Howard's comments about vision and strategic planning. We have our city master plan for commercial and residential areas and how the spatial use of the city will be done and how many parks we have and whatnot. But then a couple years ago, when we finally completed a Parks and Recreation master plan, that goes to for the, just like it says, Parks, Recreation, and Culture, for people to use. And that is something that we have a great plan for. We've put money towards it, but it's not being executed. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. Not stating there's faults in any way, shape, or form, but things do happen. But we do need, along with a vision, which we've done with our master plans, we also then need a plan for execution. And that's where it's lacking right now. And we hope to have that corrected. We've been doing our job trying to provide funding for proper sources, but we all need to then work in harmony to execute those plans for the betterment of the residents. Next item.
Mr. President.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Watts.
One thing, Last week, we had a city resident, business owner, and 26-year firefighter for the city of Warren, Daniel Pasquay, passed away at the age of 85. I'd like to ask a moment of silence for him, please.
A moment of silence for Mr. Pasquay. Thank you, Mr. Watts, for bringing that up. Any other? Next item.
Next item is 11A, which is a public hearing, consideration and adoption of a resolution approving industrial facilities tax exemption and agreement for Home Depot USA, Inc., located at 23500 Mound Road, Warren, Michigan.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience who'd like to speak regarding this item? We'll have the public come up first, and then we'll have the petitioner. Come on, Ms. Harris.
I am confused about where Home Depot is on Mound Road. And so if these are administrative offices, why does the administrative office get a tax break? Just wondering.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Is there anyone else from the audience who'd like to speak regarding this item? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, turn the item over to council for action.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion by Moore, by Lafferty, support by Moore. Discussion?
Discussion.
Ms. Rogancy.
Clarifying question. I'm assuming this is a part of the North Point development.
Are the petitioners available to make comment? If you could state your name for the record and then address the public question and then the question here.
Sure. My name is Mark Bragg from the Home Depot.
Okay, and the question from the resident about, are these administrative offices or is this a warehousing?
So this is warehousing.
Okay.
It will be a distribution center.
Got it. Ms. Rogancy?
Is this part of the North Point development overall?
Yes, this is part of the overall.
You'll be housed within that development?
Yes, that's correct.
So this may not be a question you can answer, and maybe the administration has to, but how will this tax exemption be different than the ones we've already provided to North Point?
So I think this one will directly benefit the Home Depot. I'm not aware of
Ms. Michaels, can you address this?
the tax exemption that North Point has received.
Thank you.
There's the real property, there's a number of people working there. What are the criteria that they're applying for, Ms. Michaels?
Council, if I may, Mr. Chair. Mary Michaels for the Attorney's Office. The developer was issued a brownfield, which means the taxes on the development will be captured and paid back to the developer for the cost. This tax exemption is actually for the real estate taxes and the personal, if eligible, the personal property taxes. There would be an abatement of half the taxes would be abated. Half would be on the ad valorem roll, and half would be at half of that rate.
On the personal property?
On the personal, if it's eligible by the state.
Right.
Personal property and real property taxes. So that's a little different than incremental development cost.
Ms. Rogancy?
That is it. I yield. Thank you.
So while you're there, Ms. Michaels, so the real property, wouldn't that be part of the developers? What real property do we have here?
Under the real estate, under the lease agreement, there's a real property. There are real property taxes that are paid to the city.
By Home Depot?
By the tenant, Home Depot.
Okay, that's what I need.
I'm sorry, I should clarify that. Under the lease, Home Depot is the taxpayer.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify for the record.
Mr.
Any
President.
additional? Mr. Kabczynski?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're still working on the demolition of the area where North Point is supposed to be doing this development, correct?
Danny Holstein, project manager for North Point, that is correct.
Okay, so we're approving a tax exemption before any shovel, so to speak, of a new development has been put into a ground?
So the area under the Home Depot building, we have started construction on. We started the 1st of this month, actually. The building is uncovered and the slab's been demoed under the Home Depot area.
And where is that designated on the property?
It would be the, I'll just call it the middle section of the property, the most recently demoed portion of the site.
So let me go back to Ms. Roganski's question. So there's a brownfield issue, which means there's a cleanup that needs to be taking place. Has that already taken place before you've even started building?
There are documents in place for the remediation of the site, and it's actively ongoing as we continue through demolition and eventually building.
My concern here, sir, is that it seems to be we're moving a little bit faster before we're putting the cart before the horse. And I think there are certain things that have to be completed and established first. As far as my position on the council is, I believe we're going a little bit too fast here, and certain things need to be completed first, such as making sure the area is taken care of and it's been cleaned up of whatever problems before we go forward with I understand you want to develop the property, that's great, but I want to make sure that we're doing things the right way, and it seems to me we're moving a little bit fast on this here. And I understand this is for deferring a tax, that's fine by me, I don't have a problem with that, but it seems to be we're moving way too quick, and it seems to be that there's a significant cleanup of that site that needs to happen first before any tenants move in. Would you agree with that?
No, it's not really a significant cleanup. It's more so how to handle the existing circumstances. Part of the remediation is some of the installations with the existing tenants, such as vapor barriers, other instances that we're putting in to rehabilitate the site or make it safely operable for our tenants.
And the Home Depot's position on this, where construction is being done, this is cool with you, basically. You're good with this?
Yes, we are aware of the current situation, and we are on board with procedures that are being followed.
All right, I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Kaczynski. If I recall correctly, this process, and you're submitting your expectation of the amount of real and personal property you're going to ask to have abated, and then after it's all constructed, the assessor will meet with you and come up with a real number that is going to be on there. So this right now is paperwork, and then that we have to approve first, and then it goes up to the state for them to approve, and then the assessor meets with, and they come up with the real numbers. So while it may seem early in the game, it's better to get it done now, and that way we can all dot i's and cross t's later, or the assessor can.
Mr. President.
Mr. Kaczynski.
Mr. President, my concern was the nomenclature of that it's a brownfield site. Usually when we have a brownfield, such as Regal Lanes, was a brownfield development before, I forget the name of the developer right now, but they built there, and there was significant cleanup or remediation that needed to be done. I have no problem with, eliminating the tax or giving them a tax vacation or whatever it is, but I'm just wondering if we're moving too quickly on something before enough has been done to make it safe.
The scope of work for any remediation would be submitted to the city, approved for the city, and also in conjunction with whatever state agency or federal agency has to be involved, depending on what is being remediated. So if they have to do a clay cap, what is that? I forget the nomenclature. Type C property cleanup. There are steps, but they'll all have to be checked off based on what the soil samples say. So that's outside of our scope.
Okay.
And I can assure you, council member, we're taking every step that's required of us through every body to make sure we're doing this the right way.
Sir, I hope you understand my concern. I have no problem with this vacation. My concern is we hear about it all the time in the news. Something happens, and then years later, oh, this was on this property here, and now everybody can file a lawsuit. That's what I want to eliminate. Let's, do it right. If we have to, slow it down a little bit here to make it right and then go forward with this, I don't have any problem with the project. I'm just wondering at what speed we're going at to get the project done. That's what my concern was.
Thank you, Mr. Kaczynski. Any additional?
Mr. President,
Mr. Watts?
I would just like to say that I've been by there numerous times.
Yeah.
One, it's a piece of local history, and I grew up in that area, so to see it going down and it's coming back up, quickly, I think is great. I don't think North Point is going to, looking at the developments they've done, I don't think they're going to shortcut anything. I think they got a lot of crews working in there. It's kind of amazing how fast it's going. I appreciate the development. I appreciate Home Depot coming there, and thank you all. Appreciate it.
Any additional? Call the question, Mr. Lafferty.
Yes, to approve.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Watts?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Ms. Rogency?
Yes.
Mr. Papandrea?
Yes.
Green votes yes. Item passed 7-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item.
Next item is a public hearing, consideration and adoption of a resolution approving collection proceedings, special assessment roll number 516, relating to the removal of a house and garage at 8686 Maxwell, which is under the nuisance abatement program.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience who'd like to speak regarding this item? Hearing and seeing none, I close the public hearing and turn the item over to council for action.
Motion to approve.
Support, Rogency.
Motion by Watts, support by Rogency. Discussion.
Thank you. I'd like discussion.
Ms. Moore?
Is there anyone here from the administration on this item? I have a question on who is our hearing officer now on abatements, on nuisance abatements.
Don't know.
I know Mr. Johnson's unfortunately not doing them anymore because he's passed, but I would like to know that answer. Who's doing the abatements, the hearings? Thank you.
Any additional? Mr. Watts?
Yes.
Ms. Rogency?
Yes.
Mr. Papandrea?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Green votes yes. Item passed 7-0. Next item.
Next item is 11C, which is an administrative hearing, appeal from a caregiver medical marijuana facilities application for 3839 East 10 Mile Road, dated February 25, 2021.
Good evening, Council.
Evening, Ms. Birdie.
My name's Karen Birdie, and with me is Christine Jabber. Our addresses are 31851 Mound Road, Warren, Michigan, and Ms. Jabber's address is 10,008 Essex in Dearborn, Michigan. We are co-counsel on behalf of the petitioner, Raghid Akrawi. Mr. Akrawi owns a piece of property at 3839 10 Mile Road. He runs a caregiver marijuana grow operation. He does not run it at that location, however. He has applied to the city for an application to do so. I wanted to make sure that I made sure the council understood that basically what I'm here before you is an issue of due process. How was the application handled, and was it handled properly? I bring this to you only after I have attempted to resolve this many times at the administrative level. I would never bring this before you without having done that and thoroughly explored all options. Truthfully, this is the last stop, the last option that I have to address this in the proper way. So a couple of facts, because this actually is a very simple case that somehow people are trying to continually complicate. The application was made, and I have it in front of you, on 2/25/21. The application states that it's for caregiver marijuana grow. That is the application that is provided by the building department to my client to complete. It was completed by his architect and was submitted by the architect personally. I have an affidavit in front of you from Hatim Hawana, and he personally says in that affidavit that he completed the application with the petitioner, and he personally took it to the building department. That was turned in on 2/25/2021, and no one disagrees with that date. Subsequent to that date, there was no response from the building department at all whatsoever with regard to that application. The architect repeatedly approached the building department, calling, asking about it, and he was finally told that the application was lost, that they couldn't find it. At that point, they brought on Attorney Jabbar. She began emailing and going to the building department, asking about the application. And the staff would say, we cannot find it, we believe it's lost, we don't know what to do about it. At one point, they told Ms. Jabbar to file another one. But what's interesting is the law had changed. So if this application was filed on 2/25/21, the law was changed in May of 2021. Now, mind you, that application was not found until September 22nd, 2021. From February to September, no action was taken on this application at all whatsoever. The application was found, Mr. Murphy found it in his office, and he brought it out, and my client very quickly snapped a photo of it, date stamped, so that she could prove it exists and that it came out of the building department. At that point, my client asked, number one, that the application be addressed. It is well settled law that any application to any municipality that is submitted in writing has to be answered in writing. Well settled. Most all of our ordinances in the city of Warren say that if you submit an application, you get an answer in writing that, if denied, tells you the reasons that it's denied. Now, I can say this with assurances because the building department does this all the time. If you apply in writing for a permit and you're not granted a permit, you're given a letter that says you're denied and why you're denied. They even tell you that if you're denied for a zoning reason, you can seek relief at the Zoning Board of Appeals. If you're denied for other reasons, it tells you right there. So then you know and you can take action. That's the key. A denial isn't the end of an application. A denial could be where you then correct what's wrong with the application and resubmit in a timely fashion. My client was denied that opportunity. If the application had been addressed in any way, I don't care if it was rejected, if it was denied, but if they had communicated any action on that application, my client still had months to correct their behavior before the end of May, to correct the action that was a problem in the application. But here's what's interesting. The application was found September 22nd of 2021. For the next, I want to say 4 to 5 months, and there are emails that document this, the building department was suspicious of the surveyor's seal on the survey. So they spent 4 to 5 months tracking down the surveyor to make sure that that seal was appropriate. That's the best way I can put it. And there are documents to talk about this. And they were able to verify that the seal was, in fact, appropriate. Now we're up to the beginning of December 2021. Still no action taken on this application, even though it was found in September. At that point, the building department, in an email, says, we're not going to grant this, and here's why. In the application, if you look at the page, second page, where it says, state the total square footage of the facility to be used for medical marijuana grow, cultivation, processing, or storage. There's 2 ways to take that question. And I understand why the architect did this. Whenever you submit something to the planning department, say you're using part of a building, and I've made this mistake and had to learn this. Say you're using part of a building for a certain use, but not the whole building. They want the entire square footage put down at the planning department, and the reason is very simple. That's how they do their fees. They do it based on the entire size of the building. So what the architect did by mistake is, well, his interpretation was, give them the entire square footage of the building. What I find out now from the building department is they want to know the amount of square footage that's actually going to be used for marijuana grow. So, also submitted with the application is this plan. And it very clearly states, proposed medical marijuana caregiver facility, 1,705 square feet. Up here, vacant, 1,439 square feet. So at the time, you had to be 500 feet from a residential zone. This line right here, this wall that they're putting in the building, is appropriate. It is more than 500 feet away from any residential zone. And I've got the survey here to show that. Can't read it, but that's what the survey showed that they wanted to check the seal on. So at this point, the drawing is clear. It's crystal clear. This part of the building's vacant. This part that is beyond the 500 feet is what they want to use for medical marijuana grow. So, in all fairness, the building department has every right, if they wanted, to say, hey, what we're really looking for in this answer to this question is how much square footage is going to be used for medical marijuana grow. So please make the change, initial it, and then we'll proceed. They could deny it. They could reject it. All of those things could have occurred. Say we turned it in February 25th, 2021. Even if they did it in 3 weeks, we're still in March. We've got the rest of March, April, and most of May to still correct whatever they needed corrected. So in any event, at this point, we've got a situation where this has to be brought to some authority and looked at. So when I look at the, well, I should explain. So my client says, okay, Mr. Barr hears, okay, so you're not going to approve this application. You're not going to approve it. You're not going to take another look at it. We're not going to resolve this. At this point, what are my options, she says. And she's told, you go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So Mr. Barr files an appeal at the Zoning Board of Appeals. Here's the problem with that. She was given bad advice by the building department, and I'm sure not on purpose, but it is bad advice. The Zoning Board of Appeals comes from the Zoning Enabling Act. Under those ordinances, the Zoning Board of Appeals only has jurisdiction or authority to hear appeals from a zoning ordinance. The application process for obtaining the grow license is in a regulatory ordinance in the city of Warren. It's in 95.5, specifically 95.5-8. The Zoning Board of Appeals can't hear the issue I just described because we're not complaining about a setback or a zoning classification. What we're complaining about is how the application was handled, which is absolutely regulatory. So if you look at the application, it very clearly comes under, it matches all the applications that marijuana licensees fill out, etc. They're all the same or very similar applications that are filled out. And each one of those, the city of Warren, as they have updated the ordinances, have very clearly stated that there is an appeal process. I submit to you that 95.5 has an appeal process for my client. I do not believe that we are without an appeal process, especially because I don't even need it listed in an ordinance to appeal to a council body. For example, any regulatory ordinance, the only body to appeal to is council. And before anybody goes to circuit court, you don't want people just after a chief zoning officer makes a decision going to circuit court. That doesn't even make sense. The circuit court looks for people to resolve every matter that they can administratively before they go and seek a higher action. At this point, in other communities, I have routinely, sometimes with sewer charges, sometimes with issues with regard to different uses and property, I have gone before their legislative body. I've done it in Sterling Heights, I've done it in Romeo Village, I've done it in Farmington Hills. This is the standard practice expected of an attorney before they, if you will, even consider a further process. In addition to that, it's my understanding that the argument from the building department is that there is no then appeal process, because I'm positive the appeal process isn't to the zoning board. So then the answer that they're saying is, they're not giving us a different solution. They're saying, you can appeal to the council, but what's the solution? Of course I can appeal to the council. Any citizen or any business owner can appeal to the city council for any matter. And I submit that I can appeal under 19.5 because it doesn't exclude us. It's interesting that 19.5 has a separate section for caregivers, and then there's many sections that still refer to caregivers. For example, at the end, 19.5-17 states that a marijuana business, caregiver operation, patient operation, or personal recreation adult use operated without a municipal license or not in compliance with the requirements listed in this chapter is a nuisance and may be abated as provided by law. So that paragraph were specifically named. I would say that there hasn't been a suggestion of a proper place for us to appeal other than here. Now, how can I say the things that I've said to you today with such confidence? I will tell you that before I even took this case, or before I would even utter these words to you, I have done a Freedom of Information request. I wanted to make sure that the facts that I present to you are accurate. So nowhere in any of the documents I requested in regard to this property was there ever a written response to the application submitted on February 25th, 2021. The closest thing I can even submit to you that was not a proper addressing of the application was a mention of it in an email on December 21st of 2021. As we sit here today, there has been no response to this application in writing whatsoever. I also had a meeting with Mr. Murphy and with Mr. Cummins, and it was stated to me that there was never a written response. In all fairness, I do want to say that 2/25/21, we were just getting back to work after COVID. So I do want to say, in all fairness, I could see where this could happen. What I'm not able to wrap my mind around is why we didn't fix it. So understanding that this happens is fine, but I believe that there's no excuse not to fix what in fact occurred. I also submitted to you 2 affidavits, one by the owner and one by the architect, to assure you that neither of them received any correspondence on this application at all whatsoever, which I don't care about. So at that point, I will say I'm assured in what I've presented to you is accurate from the documents that I sought out and looked at, and in my conversation with Mr. Cummins and with Mr. Murphy. And like I say, I don't relish being here, quite frankly. I wish we had resolved this at the administration. What I had asked for at the meeting was that the application be analyzed as if they just received anew, if you will, freshly, under the ordinance that was in place when it was filed, which is standard law. Applications are always reviewed under the law in effect when they're filed, and that The only complaint that they had made about the application in the meeting was the square footage, them wanting us to change it to the square footage actually used for marijuana. These plans are still appropriate. There's no changes that need to be made to the plans. So, one of the things that came up that was an issue in the meeting is, it was brought up that when the application was missing, my client was told to apply with the same another application to try to get approval. They submitted that application. It was denied because the law now says 1,000 feet away instead of 500. So the building doesn't comply at that point, and they cashed the check. So I was like, why would the building department recommend them to file again? Then they acted on it and cashed the check and denied it. I'm sorry. They cashed the check, and again, they're indicating it's never been denied in writing. I'm sorry, I misspoke. One of the issues that was brought up that I want to address is Mr. Murphy stated that while the application was missing and Ms. Jabbar came to the building counter, they said to her, one of the options you have is to file an appeal to the ZBA to see if you can get to use the building for the caregiver grow. So Ms. Jabbar did file that application. But I have to point out, it was kind of implied in the meeting, and if I'm wrong about this, I hope Mr. Murphy corrects me, that somehow made it so he didn't have to answer the application. And I want to point out that you can file an application and you're entitled to a timely answer. At the same time, you can file at the ZBA because they're not exclusive. If the application's approved, you can use the half of the building. If you're then successful at the ZBA, you get to expand and use the whole building. If you're not successful at the ZBA, you're using what you're entitled to use based on what you've been approved for. So the argument somehow that the filing of a zoning application stops an application for a use, a licensed use, is beyond comprehension. They're not related in any way whatsoever. So I do want to point out that that merely doesn't hold water. So in essence, even if I take all the facts as presented by the building department and the facts that I presented to you, I don't think they're going to deny. They might say it wasn't lost, but it wasn't acted on. Any way you slice it, an application was not acted on in a timely manner in writing, which is required in all of our ordinances, and also I will submit to you by common law. The municipality has an obligation to respond to a written request in writing. So what I am requesting from the council respectfully is that this application be addressed under the ordinance that was in effect when it was submitted, and that any discrepancies that the building department may claim exist. The only one I know of, and I specifically asked, was that square footage one. If there are any others, that we be given a fair opportunity to respond to those and then have the application ruled on or adjudicated or handled. I think that's the only just thing to do, because to hold an application while the law changes and to not be able to find it till months later, I mean, May the law changed and they found it September 22nd, is a denial of due process to anyone applying to the city for that use.
Thank you, Ms. Birdie. So the original application, in your interpretation, was an allowable use at time of application based on the ordinance?
For half the build, for that
Based
portion of the building.
based on the plan?
Yes. Yes. I believe that had the square footage been properly listed in the application, the way that they wanted it, there are two ways to read that question. And if he had interpreted the way the building department does and had done the right amount there, there's no question this would have been administratively approved. According to Mr. Cummins, that was the only issue that was that, and they were checking on the seal.
I was looking at the application, and some of the questions have two little asterisks next to them, and usually that means like a footnote, look for a definition, but there is none. But it's not on every question.
Right.
Like, identify each suite, state the total square foot, those have asterisks, as do others, but there's not a definition. That's usually, to me, that what that indicates on a form.
Right. I've given you the complete form. I don't know.
Mr. President?
Ms. Moore.
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Jaber and Ms. Birdie. It's nice to see you both.
Thank you.
It seems to me that this application should be considered to the then existing zoning ordinance, and it should be handled that way. Your client shouldn't be penalized because his application was lost and not responded to. So it's, it's pretty clear to me.
Any additional comment?
Mr. President.
Mr. Lafferty.
I would agree with that as I would like to, this is an administrative hearing, I'd like to also hear from Building Department, but I do not see Mr. Cummins.
Mr. Murphy's here.
Mr. Murphy?
Evening, Mr. Murphy.
Good evening. Everett Murphy, Chief Zoning Inspector for the City of Warren.
Mr. Lafferty.
I do have a different version of events. Addressing the asterisk on the application, if you look on the very front page underneath the bold print, please print all information. There are two asterisks, and that indicates information that will be kept confidential. That's right on the cover of the application itself, the cover page.
Okay.
Do you see that?
Right here.
Thank you.
Right? So what all that was saying was identifying the suites and what portion of the building, that was information that would be confidential. It wouldn't be shared. That's all that is saying. It is true that they submitted this application February 25th. There was no site plan included with it. There's never been a requirement to submit a site plan with any of the marijuana applications, not the caregiver applications, not the state adult use or the state medical. It's not a requirement. We require a floor plan, but no floor plan was submitted with the application either. Page 2, where it says, state the total square footage of the facility to be used for medical marijuana growth, cultivation, processing, or storage. That's pretty clear. And they indicated 3,145 square feet, which happens to be the entire building. Now, I was familiar with this property when Mr. Hanawa had brought this application because 2 years prior, there was an application submitted and the city researched it and determined that it was too close to residential. At that time, they applied to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance to allow it to be within 500 feet. The application in 2017 was rescheduled twice before it was ultimately withdrawn by the petitioner. So they never completed that. When Mr. Hanawa brought that application to the counter, and I spoke to him directly, and I told him, I said, wait, we already know that this property doesn't meet the distance requirements. If I take your application now and cash your check, right, we're gonna be wasting your money. There's no reason to do that. You have a choice. You can either withdraw the application, or you can go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and ask them if you can use the entire building. And that's exactly what Mr. Hanawa indicated to me that they were going to do that night. Now, I didn't hear from them again until they submitted the application to the for the zoning variance, which was on May 20th. That item was scheduled for June 23rd. On June 23rd, it was announced that the petitioner asked for it to be rescheduled. They rescheduled the item for July 14th, 2021, and on July 14th, it was announced that the request had been withdrawn by the petitioner. And there's not a single mention until July 29th that they would even consider using part of the building. And if that were true, why didn't they submit an application and ask for that? Why did they go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and ask for the whole building? Because that's exactly what they wanted to do. They never told us anything different. So 2 weeks after they withdrew their request, they submitted another application on their own. No one told them to submit another application. They did that on their own. This time, they asked for only part of the building. The problem was, as Ms. Birdie stated, the ordinance had changed. Council voted on April 27th. It went into effect in early May, that they now had to be 1,000 feet away from a school. It was only 500 feet prior to that. So the first application that they submitted, they decided to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. They withdrew that request, which in effect we would have just denied that application, but all of a sudden, they submitted a new one only asking for half. And none of these allegations about a lost application came into effect until I contacted them after July 29th application and said, you've got another problem. The ordinance changed. Now, not only are you don't meet the distance requirement to residential, you now don't meet the distance requirement to a church as well. And that's when all the allegations about a lost application started coming out, and they've accused me of delaying this so many times. I've got emails as well as they do, which I gave them during the Freedom of Information request, that'll show that from August 19th all the way to October, approximately 22nd, 2 months, Ms. Jabor kept canceling appointments that we scheduled. I gave her plenty of opportunities to come in and talk about this. She requested it. I gave her so many dates. She canceled or rescheduled for 2 months before we finally sat down to talk, and that's when she asked me if I would look at everything again and reconsider the decision to deny that first application. So I told her, provide me with whatever documentation you want and a timeline, your timeline of events, and I would research that. I didn't get those documents for another 12 days, which brought us all the way to November 2nd. So during that time, I did do a thorough review of that application, and when I was done, I turned that over to my department supervisor, Jim Cummins, and he reviewed it. We sat down together and determined that, yes, they applied for exactly what they wanted, which was the entire building. They went to the Zoning Board of Appeals and asked for a variance to use the entire building. When that failed, they turned in another application. Well, it didn't fail. They withdrew their request. When that happened, they turned in another one asking to use half, not realizing that the ordinance had changed. So none of this stuff about a lost application is true. The delays in anything of giving them anything in writing are because they've actually rescheduled meetings over and over again over a 2-month period before we even sat down to talk about it. And so that's where we're at today. So in the determination, which in the emails we talked about, and I told her that I would reply to her in an email. It wasn't just a mention, it was a very detailed email outlining all of the events, the complete timeline that happened, and ultimately that the application was denied because it didn't meet the distance requirements, being 500 feet from residential at the time they applied. And I gave them their rights to appeal. That was a zoning determination. That appeal is to the Zoning Board of Appeals. That is the place that determines that. And they were scheduled for the Zoning Board of Appeals. So after I ultimately sent the communication to her telling her that we were denying it, they applied for the appeal. It was scheduled for March 9th of 2022, April 13th, April 27th, May 25th, June 22nd, July 13th, and now the appeal is scheduled for tomorrow, July 10th. It's been on the ZBA agenda 7 times now. Excuse me, really dry. And all 6 times that it's been rescheduled has been at the petitioner's request. So again, they could have heard this in March, and we're in August, and we're still not there. And these delays are because of the petitioner and their representatives. This is not delays on our part.
Mr. Lafferty?
Mr. Murphy, did you provide a letter to the petitioner denying the original application in May of 2021?
No, if I were to do that, then we would have processed that check, cashed that check, and done the review and turned around and told them that it doesn't meet the distance requirements. I gave them a choice at the counter. Do you want to withdraw this application, or do you want to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals? Because if I'll just be taking your money. And they chose, they indicated to me right there on the spot at the counter, Mr. Hanawa, who's not here tonight, that they would go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And again, I didn't hear from them for 3 months, which, if you look at it, especially post-COVID, but 3 months is about an average amount of time that it would take you to get an architect or an engineer to draw up plans, get your documents together, and submit them. And that's exactly what they did.
So it is your position that you did not receive an application in February, you did not receive a check, nor did you cash one?
No, that's not my position. My position is they handed me that application, and I told them, you should either withdraw this or go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And when they said they'd go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, I said, fine, I will hang on to this. We won't do anything until we decide what the Zoning Board of Appeals determines. And they're trying to say it was lost. It was never lost. When I was accused of having lost this application, I went right into my office, got it, and brought it out to Ms. J-Bar and showed her it wasn't lost. It's been sitting here waiting for you guys to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And there may not have been a problem with that if they hadn't withdrawn from the Zoning Board of Appeals. I don't know why they withdrew that application.
So there was no application filed in February, and there was no application fee applied for at that time?
They did hand me that, and the check.
They handed you what?
I have it.
What did they hand you?
An application and a check. This application and the check, I still have that.
You still have the original application and the check?
Application and the check, I still have it.
So did you give the check back? You didn't give the check back to them? That's still in your possession?
Correct. When we finally met with Mrs. J-Bar, months after all of this happened, they were still going to go for appeals. They're still appealing it. It's due tomorrow.
Mr. Lafferty?
I'm going to yield.
Mr. Papandreou?
Yes. Hi, Mr. Murphy. I think you're doing a great job over there, but I think this council wants to make an attempt to do what's fair. And I just have a few questions to ask you,
Sure.
Okay? When you first talked to them, if they had said, we just want what's beyond the 500 feet, if they had shown you the drawing that she showed, that council has shown us today, she's shown us a drawing where it's only partial in the building and it's within the requirement at that time, would she have been approved at that time?
Yes, and that site plan was brought forward for the first time with the application that was submitted on July 29th, the one that shows half the building.
Right.
We have site plans that went to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have surveys, everything, where there's no separation of that building. That did not occur until they applied in July on the 29th. And although you don't have copies of all of these site plans, every one of these site plans are actually dated January 28th with different headings on them. It's like somebody was using a template and just altering it and reprinting them when they needed to.
I understand what you're saying, but what would be the harm of going back in time and whatever was going on in their minds at that time that they didn't say the right thing, that they want to comply with the 500-foot requirement? What would be the harm now of granting their appeal?
I have no stake in the game. It matters not to me. I enforce the rules, and those are the rules.
I would make the motion to do that.
Support.
I have a motion by Papandreou, support by Moore. Is there more than, can you put on the record specifically what your motion is?
My motion is to grant the appeal of Councilor Birdie, grant the appeal, and what we want to do is go back in time and recognize that at that time, when they first submitted that application, if they had said the right words, we're just going to comply with the 500-foot, we're only going to use part of the building, and I have no problem with Mr. Murphy and his inspectors enforcing that and inspecting that and make sure they're in compliance. We'll just go back in time and we'll grant the appeal of Councilor Birdie. By the way, you've done an excellent job, Councilor.
Motion and support. Motion by Papandrea, support by Moore. Any further? Mr. Papandrea?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Rogancy?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Watts?
No.
Mr. Kaczynski?
No.
Green votes yes. Item passed 5-2. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Birdie. Next item.
Next item is 12A, consideration and adoption of a resolution approving a contract amendment with Cincinnati Time, now operating as a Centus Corporation. Motion to approve.
Support Lafferty with
Motion
discussion.
by Moore, support by Lafferty. Discussion, Mr. Lafferty.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through the chair to Ms. Michaels. Council, you'll remember that we had some significant discussion over timekeeping throughout our term thus far, and there was a renewal of a contract that was presented to us by Mr. Demas within the first few months of our term, and I had concerns about the number of systems in use with the city, and we were proposed to renew for a 3-year period of time. I had counter-proposed that we renew only for 2 and then go out for RFP and seek other solutions, look at this from a holistic point of view, and ask for shortening that time that we were committed to a contract. When that was done, there was a significant amount of stonewalling, and that's the best way. I asked, after our meeting in August 25th of 2020, after that 2-year renewal, I had sent several emails asking for copies of the countersigned 2-year agreement. That was done on September 9th, the 17th, and then on October 6th. Finally, in December, I had received a response from Mr. Demas that it was that Ascentus, or CTS at the time, Cincinnati Time, may not even be willing to sign that agreement. And then I finally received an update shortly thereafter that Ms. Michaels was working on an amendment. And only after receiving this update did I find that on January 26th of 2021 that renewal agreement was signed. So I'm glad to see that at least that much was done with the contract. Subsequent to that, we had a request from Cincinnati Time to replace time clocks. Although Mr. Knapp's letter, both parties were acting in good faith, I do have to disagree with that statement because I don't believe the level of service that we were receiving. The account executive attempted to turn it around and indicate that perhaps it was council's malfeasance that was preventing us from moving forward with replacing time clocks, when in reality, after I stated the facts of the situation, they had been remiss in having 2 years of time that had lapsed in giving us notice that these time clocks were indeed not going to be compatible with future software upgrades. So I am very happy to see that Cincinnati Time has been bought by a much larger company, perhaps with better customer service and perhaps with other opportunities that we might be able to improve the timekeeping service. You may not think that it's a significant issue. This is a significant issue. We have multiple departments that participate in the timekeeping process and with many different needs. And I have maintained and been consistent in my approach on this that Cincinnati Time was ill-equipped to manage this on the city's behalf, so I am looking forward to seeing what Ascentus can do. Now, with that being said, Ms. Michaels, in the council packet, we did receive a copy of a letter which was addressed to Mr. St. Pierre, and so I'd like your clarification first on this letter, and this letter is a assignment letter that it looks like they proposed to us that asked us to waive all termination capabilities. It's stated in this letter. By signing this letter, and this is on behalf of Ascentus, that was delivered to Mr. St. Pierre on 2 dates in July, the 14th and the 21st, and it states, the purpose of this letter is to confirm that on August 13th, 2021, Ascentus Corporation purchased all of Cincinnati Time Systems, Inc.'s assets, and as a result, the agreement was assigned to and assumed by Ascentus Corporation. By signing this letter, the City of Warren, 1, consents to the assignment without modification of any provision of the agreement, regardless of any conditions, prohibitions, or restrictions set forth in the agreements or otherwise, and 2, waives any right to terminate this agreement in connection with a result of the assignment. So my first question to you is the proposed contract that, by the way, was sent to us via email outside of the packet because it was incomplete. Does that replace this letter?
This proposed agreement will replace that letter. Ascentus will be assuming all obligations of the Cincinnati Times agreement, and that agreement includes the right to terminate for cause and convenience. For convenience, the city would have the right to terminate upon 90 days' notice. That was a requirement of Cincinnati Times, and that must be assumed by Ascentus.
Okay. With regard to the recitals on the first page, paragraph 3, I would ask you to make a change to indicate when in 2017, and this will all be given to you. Okay. When in 2017 the renewal number 1 was approved by council and executed with Cincinnati Time, so having those 2 dates included. And then for the update number 2 to recital number 3, I'd like to also have it include when the amendment and renewal number 2 of the agreement between Cincinnati Time and the City of Warren was not only approved by council on the 25th of August 2020, but was executed, which now appears to be the 26th of January 2021. I'd like those 2 changes made. In addition, could you, I do see this was docu-signed already by Ascentus. I would like to have it spell checked.
The document that was signed by Ascentus is not the final document.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I would expect original signatures.
Okay, that's fine. My final issue is with the confidentiality statement on page 2, section 9, and that it's not even, it doesn't even read correctly. So there are specific issues, and specifically, shall not disclose any such information, records, data, codes, studies to security information to a third party. I believe that's supposed to say studies, comma, security information or other records disclosed to a third party. And then one other item in the first sentence is that it calls out, and instead of an and, it has an or.
Yes, that was already corrected.
That was already caught?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that was caught with the version that you were given tonight.
Okay, very good, because that, it gave them, well, you can't disclose any of this, but if you have this, you can disclose the rest and not this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Before any document is signed, Councilman, it is fly-specced.
I appreciate that. That's why we have you. That's why we have our eyes on this as well. The only other, let me make sure that I've got all of the questions asked here. And, all right. And so the only other question I have, once we approve this evening with the changes, when do you expect the document, the new agreement to be sent over to Ascentus?
Start Monday. We'll wait for the reconsideration period. If it's approved, we'll wait for reconsideration period, and we'll send the documents for signature, and once we get insurance and the documents signed, then the city officers will sign. So the process it will start Monday.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your time and attention to this. These agreements are important. These contracts are important. If you couldn't tell, I take this part very, very seriously. I want to make sure that we have these agreements in place. I was not denying payment to Ascentus just because I didn't like Cincinnati Time. We must have these proper agreements in place in order to protect ourselves and our interests. So I appreciate your time and effort in this, and I will ensure that all of my changes are transmitted to City Attorney's Office.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Lafferty. Any additional? Call the question, Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Kabazinski?
Yes.
Mr. Watts?
Yes.
Ms. Rogency?
Yes.
Mr. Papandrea?
Yes.
Green votes yes. Item passed 7-0. Next item.
Next item is 12A1, which are the tabled checks. I would make a motion to remove from the table the Ascentus checks.
Support Rogan-C.
Motion by Moore, support by Rogan-C. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to approve check number 640992, check number 641520, and check number 642018.
Support with discussion.
Motion by Moore, support by Lafferty. Discussion, Mr. Lafferty.
I'd like to amend Ms. Moore's motion to be contingent upon the counter-signature being applied from Ascentus and the City of Warren on the contract.
We can't do a contingent on a check. We'd have to table them.
Okay, I do not wish to table
They go
this.
out tomorrow or Thursday, whatever.
All right, I will withdraw the amendment and approve.
You can't reconsider, Bill.
Yeah, I don't want to reconsider it.
Okay.
Any additional? Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Ms. Rogan-C?
Yes.
Mr. Watts?
Yes.
Mr. Papandrea?
Yes.
Mr. Kabazinski?
Yes.
Green votes yes. Item passed 7-0. Next item.
Next item is 12B, request of the Human Resource Department to approve an increase of award to Michigan.com by $10,000 annually, bringing the new annual total to $45,000. Consideration and adoption of a resolution. Motion to approve with discussion.
Support
with
Rogan-C.
discussion.
Motion by Moore, support by Rogan-C. Discussion, Ms. Moore?
Yes, Mr. Demas, please. Would you just explain briefly so everybody knows what this is?
Just basically, Council Secretary, the ads that we run, for example, the police department, they run all colored ads. They're $1,500 each. And this additional $10,000 will get us through this period of time till like September, and I'll be back in September for the next fiscal year for additional monies to basically advertise in the Detroit News and Free Press and 800 websites for recruitment, which would include police, fire, and the general employees.
Great, thank you. So, speaking of job positions, there was a position added in the mayor's office to be the executive administrator. That was a new position. Have you been notified of that appointment?
I am not really that familiar with it, Council Secretary, but I can look into it for you.
Yeah, because there's no mechanism for somebody to get paid in that position at this point. And so I was kind of curious because we haven't gotten that appointment over. And we also added another position in the mayor's office And we haven't received, maybe they've not hired anybody yet, but we haven't received that appointment either. And if you could answer one more question, we got a letter from Ms. Brooks this week that was forwarded to us about a seminar of sorts. What is her position now?
She's our diversity coordinator. She works part-time.
We eliminated diversity coordinator from the budget. Is she being paid out of the temporary co-op?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. Lafferty.
Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Demas, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Councilman.
Could you please clarify in the resolution, last page, that the increase cites the annual periods of September 1, 2021 through August 31, 2022, and the annual period September 22 to August of 23. So are you asking for an increase for this year and next?
No, just through September.
Through September of this year?
Yes.
Okay, so the resolution is not correct?
Let me see if I can pull that out real quick.
What is
I know
confusing is that we're asking
this
for
fall that
10,000?
does expire. And I'll be back here in the fall for the next year. That's the fiscal year that the contract with the Detroit News Free Press runs.
So you're asking for an additional $10,000 to be allocated for a period that's already, that's going to be ending at the end of this month?
I think it's the end of September, but let me see here.
No.
Further resolve the August 31, 2020, well, no, wait a minute. Let me see. That's 2020. No. No, this time period for this particular request is just through the end of August of this year. So I'll be back in September.
So yes, this month.
All right, so it expires August 31 this year, and so you're not asking for the period of September 22 to August 23 tonight?
No, sir.
Okay, so I will amend the resolution to strike and the annual period September 1, 2022 through August 31, 2023. And if that's accepted by the maker of the motion?
Sure.
Ms. Rogency?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. And one final question. Have these funds already been encumbered? What you're asking us tonight?
No.
So you'll be encumbering the 10,000 between now and the end of the month?
Yes, take us through this time period.
All right, thank you.
Any additional?
Mr. President,
Ms. Rogency?
just through the chair to Mr. Demas, in general, how is hiring going? I know it has been, and this is a bit of a
I think,
sidebar, but
they're wrong. The fire department with the cadet program, basically we're going to meet